What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to episode 8 of Motor Talk. My name is Dan. As always, I am joined with Mr. Craig, and we are part of the Motor Misfits crew. What's going on, Craig? I can't believe it's been a week already, man. I mean, literally, this time is flying.
Yeah, it seems like it's flying. It's getting closer and closer. I know we're both ready to get out on bikes and stuff. It's getting closer and closer to that
I'm
time.
itching, baby. I'm
Yeah.
itching.
So, it's always great
I'm itching.
to get to sit down and talk with you every week, and the stuff that we talk about just kind of applies to everybody. So it's amazing.
Exactly. And whether you take one little tidbit of what we talk about, that's all that matters. Sometimes this is just good content. And there might be something you could take away from any of the videos or the podcast that you may be listening to. As always, if you like what you hear, you like what you see, please don't be afraid. Share it with your friends. Give us a like. We do this just kind of as a way to get out there and talk a little bit, but we would love to hear from our viewers. If there's anything that you think we could do an episode of, like this one, you know, this episode, we're going to talk about pre-inspections of your car and your motorcycle when you're going to get on that bike or when you're going to start your car. With the car, it's a little bit more easy because everything's got computers and technology
Yeah.
and it tells you things. But your motorcycle only tells you a couple things. It doesn't tell you everything, and you physically got to look at it.
Yeah, you're exactly
And
right.
and I don't I can I'm very bad at this. I don't do a lot of these things.
Dude, I'm probably the worst. I will go ahead and throw my name in there for the worst person at pre-bike inspections, pre-car inspections. Like it's like other people will be like, "Hey, your tires like almost flat." No, I've been driving on it like that for
No.
like 2 months.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah,
But and that goes into with motorcycles, they have what they call a T-clock pre-ride inspection checklist.
yeah,
If you've taken any riding course through your state, a lot of them go through it. The website's msf-usa.org. They have a lot of information, a lot of cool stuff on there. Definitely check it out. But like T clock here, before I get into that, do you know the correct tire pressure that you're supposed to have in your motorcycle tires?
So, in fact, I do, um, because I've been known to run them pretty low. It's one of those that I don't check them every week, every month, every ride. Like you're supposed to. So on my specific bike, I'm supposed to run between 38 and 42 pounds of pressure in my tires. And I've been at places and people don't realize that if your tires aren't inflated correctly on a bike, it doesn't steer. Like it doesn't steer right at all.
No.
And that's how I know that hey,
Mm-mm.
something's up. Like my bike wouldn't it literally wouldn't turn. And I'm like something's up. So I get to my friend's house and he's like, "Well, let's check the pressure in your tires." I had 23.
Yeah, that's way under the typical.
Yeah.
Um, I did a Google search just because I wanted to know for my knowledge or whatever, and it says recommended PSI. Street bikes typically 28 to 40 psi, with the lower setting for sport riding
Yeah.
and the higher setting for commuting.
Right.
Now, our bikes don't have an inner tube, but
No.
some do.
Right.
And they say the heavier motorcycles, we should have the higher PSI. So I usually run mine about 38 to 40, maybe a little bit higher just because I'm a bigger person. My girl's a big, she's bigger, and it's a lot of weight that's on the bike. And it's one of those things that, safety. I've ridden
Yeah.
with somebody that didn't necessarily do a pre-inspection. They rode real hard for about 300 miles. and they get to the dealer, they pump the air out, and they end up blowing out the rear tire because they wore out the sidewalls.
Right.
And it
Well, and
was and it got
it's also
wrapped up into the bike,
yeah,
so
it also depends on the tire too, because you run a thicker tire on yours. Mine is a low
yeah.
profile tire, and I mean, when you put 40 pounds of air in those, 40 pounds of air in mine, they're like a rock. I mean, they are
Right.
hard.
Well, that's why you have the air suspension.
Yeah, and so I went to air because of that. I mean, it rode like a tank. So went to air suspension. But you've got more of a touring tire on yours, and
Hmm.
there's more tire to it. There's more sidewall to it, so it rides
Hmm.
differently. And you can tell when you don't have the right amount of air in your tire, it doesn't ride right.
Or I'll get the little if I know that there's something going on with my tires, and this also has to do with the bike being off balance when it comes to weight. But you see me, I ride, and this I don't recommend this to anybody, but I have a tendency that I'll put my hands in my vest pockets and I'll put my feet up on the highway bars and I'll just roll. No, don't hold the handlebars, no nothing. I'm very comfortable because I know my bike, but I know that if I let go of that and I start feeling the little death wobble in the front, I either know there's something with my tires or it's off balance, like
Yeah,
something's not balanced right.
I'm sure people
But going back,
who see us rolling down the road,
yeah, go
you
ahead.
going down with your hands in your vest, no hands on your thing, and mine, I take my hands and actually put them on the rear jug of the engine, and I'll let them set right
Right,
there, and we'll be rolling down the highway,
right.
3 feet from each other, and nobody's holding on to handlebars at all, and it's like we're rolling at 70, 80 going down the
Like
interstate.
nuts. Yeah, people think we're freaking crazy.
Yeah,
Um, but going back to this T clock pre-inspection, which I'll go over it real quick. I'm not going to go into each thing detailed, but it makes sense. And then I was talking to Craig before we got on the show here today. But if you do your bike, it takes 2 seconds to send a text message. Hey man, when's the last time you checked your air? Or hey,
yeah.
when's the last time you checked? Uh, one that's on here that once I get to it, when have you checked the neck screws for your handlebars? We don't realize, but I'm shorter. When you push that bike around and you're going through like gravel or whatever, you're putting a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
those bars. You're not supposed to have that, and especially if you've replaced your bars, you've already
Who?
taken that
Wait,
pin
wait, wait,
that
wait, wait,
doesn't
wait.
allow it
Who
to.
who replaces bars on bikes? Oh,
You,
everybody.
you're the only
Everybody
one.
replaces
Yeah,
bars on bikes.
yeah,
Nobody rides with
yeah,
stock
yeah.
bars.
No, exactly. So here, I'll go through this real quick. So this is the T clock. This is on that msfusa.org. Um, but it says tires, check the depth. If you see the belt in the back of it, which we've told several people, hey man,
I was told
your rear,
that because
because you don't check
you
it,
don't see like on my bike, you can't see the rear tire when you
not when you have it sitting so low.
yeah.
you know and then it says check the tire pressure, and remember, cold weather and hot weather, your tires are going to change, so you may put it away and you may have 38 pounds of pressure in there. When you go to take it out first, you may only have 28. I had the same thing happen in my dad's Jeep. I had the tires at the perfect temperature, and then all of a sudden it got real cold one day,
Yeah, and they
and I
drop.
lost 10 pounds per tire.
Yeah.
So and then I had to go up, and then it says with your wheels, check to make sure there's no broken ring, or if you have any cracks, or we've had it happen where we'll hit a pothole in the front and you don't realize that your front rim's bent
Yeah.
or
And that
cracked.
that destroys the whole ride. I mean, you with a cracked rim or a broken rim, and you find it at the hotel that night. I mean, that's yeah, it's one of those. What do I do now?
Exactly, that's $1,000 fix now,
Yeah,
minimum, with the trying to get there. And then they say check your brakes. We talked about that in a couple episodes ago.
my brakes are great, man.
Make now they are.
I never run brakes too far.
um, and make sure that they function. Check the fluid, check to make sure there's no wear and tear on them. Make sure your rotors are good. Sometimes we don't realize that. We're just doing pad pad swaps. But sometimes those rotors just don't come back, especially up here in the Midwest. We have this nasty thing called salt, and if you don't wash your bike down, you get some rust. You'll start getting pitting, and then your braking is not the greatest.
Yeah. When your rotor looks
You
like a
know,
wave from the ocean, you know you need to replace it.
exactly, exactly. And then so this T clock, and then it says controls. Make sure your handlebars are straight. Make sure they're tight. Make sure your pedals are your shifter pedal and your brake. Sometimes you may drop your bike, or it happens. You may have bent a shifter, or you may have bent
Or
a
even the
brake.
screw, because those are held on by a screw. So if that screw vibrates
Hmm.
loose, I mean, motorcycles vibrate. If that screw vibrates loose, that shifter knob, the end of it, can come off, and then you're trying to go down the road and you got nothing to shift with.
I've had it on the 14. Um, the I'm really bad with parts on bikes or whatever. So the bolt that goes through that controls your shifter, it goes through, and then you have your linkage that goes, and it will shift the trans for you.
Hmm.
Um, that bolt came out, and I was stuck in second gear going down the highway because I had to get to a Harley dealer for them to replace that bolt because it sheared off.
Yeah, yeah, and
So then I had to buy a new one.
it's one that you don't think about. I mean, who thinks about bolts falling off your bike? Nobody thinks there's
Yeah,
going to be
you
bolts.
would think that they would use enough, either Loctite, whether it's the blue or the red, and
Well, I'll
that
tell
can
you
be on
what,
another video. But
I found enough bolts on motorcycles that I can't get out because they use too much of
yeah,
it, and then I found some that they don't use
hmm
any on, and it's like what?
yeah, you're
No
like,
rhyme or reason.
that's not supposed to be loose like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Check your cables. A lot of the stuff that we have, on the older bikes, you have a lot of cables.
yeah,
But a lot of the newer bikes, everything's internal, so you really don't have much to worry about. Check your hoses. I've got a liquid cooled bike. I know you don't. You have just a regular air cooled. But make sure you got no leaks. Make sure when you go out, that's the biggest thing. Look underneath your bike and say, "Hey, do I have
yeah.
oil? It's coming
I
from
mean,
somewhere."
the thing that everybody always says, Harley, it's going to leak some oil. Well, it might, but when we're talking leaking oil, it might be a drip, like one drip. If you've got a puddle sitting underneath yours, there's something wrong.
And a lot of times, especially on these bikes that, like, I would say yours, or maybe Cliff's, but when you're running a higher output motor, a lot of times that oil is gonna, at least I've seen, come from your around your air filter.
Yeah, yeah, because it's got
A lot
breathers
of that
that
oil is getting pushed out.
yeah, it's got breathers into the air filter, and it's supposed to
Yeah.
keep it from sumping, and it does a great job, but that oil's got to go somewhere, and if it goes into your oil filter, then you're sucking oil back down in, so that's not what you want either. So
And it's not performing at its best availability or
no,
best ability.
no, definitely not.
Throttle. Make sure when it goes back. It's
Yeah,
not
it should
sitting
snap
there.
back. It shouldn't stick.
On the O three, because that is cabled. It has one of those testing screws that a lot of times I'll use it for my cruise control
Cruise
because I
control.
don't have cruise control on that bike. But I'll be like, oh, it's not going back. So then I have to loosen that screw up so that it
Yeah.
goes back freely.
Yep.
But those are things you got to check. Your battery. Your battery's a big thing. I think that's one you should definitely check if you're not running a charger on it. Find out when the last time you changed it out. I don't
Yeah.
know what they say. I've heard 2 to 4 years. I've heard, you know, 3 years. I don't know what the warranty from Harley is, but Harley's batteries are getting stupid crazy expensive.
Oh yeah, yeah. Batteries are crazy expensive, and you don't want to replace one if you don't have to, because it's you're talking $150 to replace one, and if you don't have to, you don't want to. So, most people stretch them out until something's wrong with them, and then do it.
Right.
Which usually that's too late. I think the recommended is between 3 and 5 years. They say you should replace
Okay.
it. But if you take care of it and it's still not, if there's nothing wrong with it, then don't replace it.
Absolutely. And headlights, make sure those are working. The one thing too is I know that there's two, I think it's two screws on your headlight. When's the last time you adjusted your headlight to make sure that it lights up the road properly?
3 weeks ago. I literally, I literally set two bikes in my garage and adjusted the headlights because I was like, those are off. Like they don't light up anything.
Right.
So
Sometimes they're shooting up to the ceiling. Sometimes they're shooting
yeah,
to the
I
ground.
won't I won't say
The
which
front.
which two it was, but one of them is really loud.
Yeah, I know that one. I know that one needed adjustment because it has a aftermarket headlight, and sometimes when you're changing those things, you don't realize, hey, the quick fix that my dad told me the story back in the day when you actually had to replace the full lens with the
Yeah.
light. Um, put down your garage door and
Yep.
find a line and
Yep.
line it up with that.
That's
That's the
exactly what I
easiest way
did.
to do it.
That's exactly
You
what I
know,
did.
I'm lucky on my 14. I mean, the whole front of it lights up like a Christmas tree. So I mean, I've got my passing lights, I've got my headlight, I've got my turn lights on my lowers, so I'm able to see. But that's especially with your bike, you only have one, or you have the two lights.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still one of those things that you have adjusted. And it's a very simple adjustment.
Oh yeah.
It's like two or three screws, correct?
Yeah. So for mine, it's really just one screw because it sets in on the side. So you got to loosen the two sides and then the adjustment screw to adjust it up and down.
Right.
But it doesn't take 10 minutes maybe to adjust it so that it's right. Which is funny because that's not one that
Exactly.
I adjusted. I adjusted the fat bob, which it gets off because it vibrates so much.
Oh, for sure. And that's not something you want to go ahead and put Loctite on because
Yeah.
again, your bike's going to age, meaning things are going to loosen up or move or shift, and that's the way that the bike is made. But you should definitely check that at least once a season,
Yeah. Yeah.
just to make sure.
The
Say, hey, am I blinding somebody while I'm riding, or am I actually lighting up the area that I need?
the one that really nobody checks that goes along with the headlight is your turn signals. Like check and
Yes,
make sure your turn signals work because that's what people look at when you're at a stoplight when you're turning. Is your turn signal actually blinking? And you should have one in the back as well as in the front. You should have one in both so that the people that are facing you can see that you're turning and the people behind you can see that you're turning. And people
absolutely.
people don't check those. They think, oh, my headlight's good, my brake light's good. Nobody ever checks the turn signals. And if your turn signal isn't working, somebody's going to pull out in front of you, thinking that you're going straight when you're not. You're turning, because your turn signal wasn't working.
Oh, absolutely. And then, going on that, there's switches. That's pretty simple. That's quick. And a lot of this checklist can be done in 2 minutes. I mean,
Yeah,
it's and And the other thing that is big, especially with me, I have a lot of electric stuff, and you've seen the inside of my bike. Sometimes, it all depends is, how quick I was trying to do something and how nice the wiring is. We also know we've seen some bikes that it looks like a rat's nest and you don't even want to touch it. Um,
straight
I'm not
fire
going to name
hazard.
names,
Straight fire hazard.
but for sure. But that's another thing. Make sure you're not pressing down on something. You only have so much limited space underneath the seat or in the saddlebags or whatever. And if you're unsure, find somebody that knows what they're doing because you really could do, you could be riding. I had it happen on the '03. My battery arced and I was like, man, I don't know why my ass is on. It hurts. It's hot, and I had to rip my seat off. And come to find out, I had an arc underneath, and there was a fire. Not a fire, but I mean, you can definitely tell that there was some sort of
Yeah,
electrical issue that was there. And then I had to get a tow truck. And by the way, your insurance company, unless you pay extra for, will not tow a motorcycle.
right.
and so now you're trying to deal with that, which is just another headache, and you're 200 miles away and trying to figure out where the hell you're going to take it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
I'm
know,
going to give a shout out to a thing that a lot of people don't know out there, and it's safety related. On kind of a little bit. So if you're a Harley person and you're looking for some good kind of backup for your insurance, um, Eagle Rider has a program where you can pay in. I think it's 200, like it's 250, $300, something like that a year, and it covers you anywhere in the United States. They will come tow your bike to the nearest Harley dealer, and along with your payment, you get credits towards rental bikes. So it's kind of
and
double.
hotels, I believe, if you
Yeah,
have to stay overnight, I believe there's hotel credits and food credits and all that other
yeah.
stuff too,
So
along with that
it's a
program.
great program. If you're going to ride some miles and you're going to be away from home, $250. That you're talking a couple of hotel nights, maybe one if you're staying at some really nice places, but you're it's money well spent there. If you break down on the side of the road and you can't fix it with the tools that you've got with you, they will literally come and tow your bike to the nearest Harley dealer, and it may be 200 miles from where you are is the nearest one, but they're going to get it to the nearest one.
Absolutely. Now keep, kind of going along those, going down this list real quick. Check your fluids. A lot of times your oil, your shifting, and what's the other one?
Your
Oil,
primary, your transmission,
primary,
yeah, and your
oil. A lot of times they use all the same stuff, but check those levels. And, with those, you may have to have somebody there because you're going to have your bike on your center stand. Um, and what is it going to do? It's going to show either low or it's going to say high.
yeah.
But you tip that bike up straight, and it may be perfect or it may be even low or again high,
Yeah.
depending on how
So
you
in
have
your
it.
in your owner's manual, it'll actually tell you how you're supposed to check it. If you're supposed to check it on the Jiffy stand, or if you're supposed to check it standing straight up. And actually, mine has marks for both. So
Oh, really?
if you pull the transmission out, the dipstick out of the transmission, it'll tell you, Jiffy stand needs to be here. If you're standing up straight, it needs to be here. So it tells you
Absolutely.
both.
Well, that's one thing to check, and also check, make sure you got no leaks underneath for gas. Sometimes we get a little trigger happy with the nozzle and we'll spill gas. But if you start smelling gas, you know that there's something's going
Yeah,
on,
something's up.
which and then all of a sudden, if it's running too rich, then your bike's going to run like crap. So you know that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and then check your.
just be,
Go ahead.
just look at your bike. I mean, start up and look at it. If it's making noises, something's up. If it's shooting white smoke out of the back, guess what? Something's up. If it's shooting
Something's
black,
up.
if it's shooting black smoke out of the back, something's up. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't have smoke coming out of it. You shouldn't have it. It shouldn't be making sounds that it didn't make before. That tells you something's wrong.
Exactly. And your bike. Like all this stuff is really silly and stupid in a sense. Your bike. It's not like you just got it yesterday. And if you did, congratulations.
Yeah.
But you know, your bike. You know how it sounds. You know how it rides. It's not like you're hopping on another bike and you have no clue what's going on with it. And these are just little pointers that you say, hey, you know what? When's the last time I checked the frame? Which that's the next one.
Yeah.
When's the last time I checked my wheel bearings?
Not soon enough.
Your suspension, your forks. I know on the '03 that I was seeing a little bit of oil that was coming. And I wasn't seeing any dripping. I just noticed an excessive amount of dirt that was getting
Sticking.
stuck to the oil, and
Yeah.
that's how I knew that hey, I had maybe a seal that went bad or something that's there. And a lot of our bikes now are either they're chain driven.
Yeah.
Now my Honda that I had was gear driven, right? Oh
Shaft.
yeah, shaft driven. Sorry.
Shaft driven. Yeah.
Um, but so and those are a little bit more harder to verify, but There are different ways that you can check those, and you just got to look through your manual. And if you didn't get a manual when you purchase your bike, they have this great thing called Google. If you haven't been on it,
Yeah.
type in your year, make, model. They can give you a full owner's manual. Sometimes they're free, sometimes you pay a little bit, but
Here's one that a lot of people don't know. So your owner's manual is great. Like it tells you, it walks you through step by step. But if you can get a service manual for your bike, they're like 10, 15 bucks online. You can get them, you can download
Haynes,
them to
isn't
your
there a
phone.
Haynes? Haynes
Yeah.
is the big one.
And it'll tell you everything you need to know about your bike, all the way down to how tight to torque each bolt that goes in your
Oh, what the
bike.
specs are. See,
Yeah.
that's a good thing too.
So, and for 10 bucks, I mean, you know exactly how tight you're supposed to put in your oil plug. Like it tells you. It tells you how tight to put it in.
Exactly.
Like, and it's not a two ugga dugga. Like it's like 14 foot pounds or whatever, and it tells you.
Exactly.
So, and
And
as a person who works on bikes, like it's awesome to have somebody who actually does it right, so that you don't have to break out like the breaker bar to get somebody's oil plug out. That's
oh, for
super
sure.
wonderful.
Or I've been to a dealer when I was getting my truck tires changed, and they zapped
Oh yeah.
all seven lugs and try to change the tire on that with just a manual,
Yeah.
wishbone or whatever. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck on that. And getting to the last thing on this pre-spec, and you're gonna laugh about this because we have two extra that are sitting in the trailer. Is when's the last time you checked your Jiffy stand spring?
Every time I put it on the trailer now.
So
So go
the
ahead and
backstory
go
is
ahead and bust out that story.
I'll bust on. So we are getting ready for a trip to go to Alabama, and we had a friend that came in from Iowa and met me here in Chicago. And I have a big Tex trailer. It's an open trailer. I can fit two full size baggers on there. But his bike sits a little bit lower because he was all weighted down with all of his stuff on it. And he went up on it, and that's the lowest point of your bike.
Is your
And he
is your
caught the
Jiffy Stand
spring,
spring? Not the Jiffy Stand,
spring.
the spring.
And so he caught it right on the edge, and it just sprung. There's no way of coming back from it. And we are 4 hours away trying to figure out what Harley has them. Luckily, Craig's mom was coming, and
Yeah.
we bought out the store of them.
To take over the story, my mom is coming
Yeah.
down, and I tell her, I'm like, "Hey, you're driving right by this Harley. Can you stop and get us a Jiffy Stand spring?" And she's like, "I don't know what I'm getting." I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'll call them. I'll have them set it out. Like, all you got to do is go in and pick it up. I'll even pay for it. Like, you don't have to pay for it, anything." So I call, and they're like, "Okay, how many? Like, you just want one?" And I was like, "No. How many do you have?" And they're like, "Well, we have three." I was like, "I want them all. I literally want all
Yeah.
three of them." And they're like, "Okay." So my mom goes in and gets them and brings them down to us, and we install the one on the bike in my garage because he's going to ride it. He's not going to put it back on the trailer. And then when we're in Alabama, we go to a Harley dealer, and people are looking for Jiffy Stand springs, and they're like, "We're sold out. We don't have any. We don't have any." And this is at a completely different dealer, and there wasn't a Jiffy Stand spring anywhere in Alabama apparently, except
So
for
it's
the
very common, is
yeah,
what we're getting at. It's a common thing that happens.
except for the two that are sitting in the toolbox on the trailer.
Yep, which they're still sitting there, meaning that I should probably take one out, and we should just throw one either in your bike or my bike,
Yeah, so we have
just to
it.
have one because, and it's only a $3 or $4 part. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like it was crazy or
I think they
nothing.
were six total, so I paid
Yeah,
$18 for three of them.
yeah. So, but that's one of those things. It's like all these little things that the checklist. I mean, can definitely be used for your automobile. When's the last time you checked your tires? When's the last time you checked your oil? What's air filter? Those things. Because if you're going on a long trip, you've already have money invested into that trip. You don't want an unplanned expense that happens
Yeah, for sure.
before you get there. That would be the. It just takes a trip that you had a high on that you are like son of a gun.
Yeah, there's nothing worse
That's the
than
trip the bike went down.
there's nothing worse than paying $1,200 for hotels and stuff for a week, and then you go and it's an extra $700 for tires because you didn't check them before you left, and they're bald in the middle of who knows where.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, with that being said, I think, it's definitely something that everybody should do and come up with their own pre-checklist and look it through and know your bike and always remind, like you ride with
Yeah,
people. I
that's where
always
I was
recommend
going.
you ride with somebody is if you're doing yours, send a text, make a
Glance
phone
over,
call.
check
Hey,
it,
when's the last time
check
you looked?
check your friends. Go through
Yeah.
your list, check your friends, and have them check yours. Because I look at mine and I'm like, oh, that's fine, and then somebody else can look at it and be like, dude, that's terrible. Like you should not be
Yeah.
doing. You should not. You should fix that.
And a lot of times that's how you find out that your tires are bad is,
Yeah.
hey, I was riding behind you, dude. It looked like your tire's a little wonky.
Hey, after you did that big smoky burnout and I couldn't breathe for like 10 seconds, I noticed that your belt's showing through your tire. You should probably get that changed now.
Should probably get that changed.
Yeah.
So, but that probably is a good place to leave off for this. I mean, it was a great episode. I can't believe episode 8 already.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to start it off this time. Usually I
There we
ask
go.
you, say,
Yeah,
hey,
go
let's
for
leave
it.
something out. You know, um, my and this isn't even car related or whatever. This is just more life in general. Don't stress on the things you can't fix
Ooh, that's good.
because, and that could go with life, that can go with government, that could go with things you got going on within your work, whatever. Just don't stress on it. Know that you're going to get through with every whatever you got going on, and you have a great support system. You may say, "Oh, well, I don't have any friends." You have somebody out there that you could talk to, and just
If not, shoot us
you're
a
going to get
message.
through
We'll talk
whatever.
to you. shoot,
Absolutely, you can
shoot us a
come on in
message. We'll
and
we'll we'll talk
just
for
don't feel
sure.
that you're alone
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Um.
everybody's going through something.
Yeah. So mine goes kind of along with that. Um. You know, knowledge is so powerful, so wonderful. I've been working on my tool collection and getting my toolbox set up. Um, but it doesn't. You can have all the tools in the world if you don't know how to use them, they're no good. So you've got to know what you're doing, and if you know it, help somebody else out. That's what it's all about, is helping other people, helping do things. So if you don't know, don't be afraid to ask, because somebody else out there probably has the same question. Somebody else out there probably has the same problem. So ask away, get some help, and if you're able to help somebody. Don't that's part of it.
I will say, and not to go on a tangent here, but being a male, we have a tendency not to want to ask for help,
Yeah.
and we feel that we can handle it on our own. But the more and more that you hold stuff in, the more and more you're going to dwell on it, and it's going to become a negative situation. So, definitely, like you said, ask for help, ask the questions, whether it be for life or even your automobile, your car, technology, whatever. There's always going to be somebody that knows just a little bit more than you do, and don't be afraid to ask those questions because that's how you learn.
Exactly, exactly. So you nailed it
So,
right there. So with that, that's the end of episode number 8. We will see you guys next week.